I didn't expect my life to unravel over something as simple as a letter. It was a Wednesday like any other. I woke up early, the morning fog hanging over the city as I grabbed my coffee, trying to shake off the exhaustion from the previous day. My name is Leo, and up until a few weeks ago, I thought I had everything under control. I had a decent job, a nice apartment, and a wife, Amelia, who I genuinely believed I knew inside and out. But that morning, everything changed. I've always been a routine guy. I like my mornings predictable. A quick shower, a cup of coffee, a simple breakfast. Amelia wasn't much for early mornings, so I had the place to myself most days. I was sitting at the kitchen table when I noticed something unusual on the counter. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a simple envelope, lightly creased, a bit worn at the edges. But it was the handwriting that caught my eye. It was hers, Amelia's handwriting. But it wasn't a typical note or a shopping list. No, this was different. The moment I saw it, something in my gut twisted. It wasn't addressed to me, but I could tell by the way the ink was pressed into the paper that she had written it with purpose, with urgency. My heart rate quickened as I reached for it, feeling a strange, almost electric buzz of anticipation. The envelope was sealed tightly, but there was something about it that made me hesitate. I've never been the type to invade her privacy. At least, I never thought I would have to. But I couldn't stop myself. I carefully slid my finger along the seal, breaking it open, and pulled the letter out. It was a short message, but the words burned into my mind like acid. I'm sorry, Leo. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, but I couldn't keep living a lie. I don't love you the way I used to. I haven't for a long time. There's someone else. Please don't hate me. The letter fell from my hand, fluttering to the table. My chest tightened as a wave of nausea washed over me. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the piece of paper, almost expecting it to disappear, for the words to rewrite themselves. But they didn't. I've never been a man of many emotions, but in that moment, every ounce of anger, confusion, and disbelief I had ever felt in my life surged within me. How long had this been going on? How many nights had I spent wondering what was wrong, trying to fix things when the real issue was right in front of me? The rest of the letter was a blur. I couldn't even bring myself to finish reading it. I shoved it back into the envelope and crumpled it up, hurling it across the room as I stood up, my mind reeling. Everything around me felt like it was shifting, like I was stuck in a dream and could only watch as my world crumbled. My hands were shaking, my thoughts scattering in 1,000 directions. I couldn't stay there. I had to get out. I grabbed my coat, stormed out of the apartment, and just started walking. The world outside seemed oblivious to what I had just discovered. People passed by, heads down, busy with their own lives, while I was falling apart. But I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was supposed to do next. All I could think about was the letter, the words, the betrayal. And worse yet, I couldn't even ask her. I couldn't confront Amelia just yet. The idea of seeing her face, knowing what she had done, made me want to scream. I walked aimlessly for hours, my mind racing, the weight of everything pressing down on me. And then, without even thinking, I found myself standing outside her office building. I hadn't planned to go there, but it was as if my legs had carried me here without my permission. I looked up at the towering glass structure, trying to gather my thoughts. Should I go in? Should I just ask her what was going on? But what if she had already left? What if she was with him? What if? I didn't know what I was doing, but I felt an overwhelming compulsion to see her, to confront her, to make her explain herself. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. Inside, the office lobby was sleek, modern, and completely indifferent to my turmoil. I walked to the elevator, trying to calm the storm inside me. When the doors opened and I stepped inside, I felt like I was descending into my own personal hell. Every second that ticked by seemed like an eternity. My heart raced in my chest. I could feel the bile rise in my throat as I thought about what I was about to do. The elevator stopped on the 10th floor. I hesitated. The door slid open, and I stepped out, half a step toward her office. But then I stopped. I saw her. Amelia wasn't sitting at her desk. She was standing there in the hallway. And she wasn't alone. He was with her. The man from the letter. My stomach dropped. I stood there, frozen in the hallway, staring at Amelia. Her back was to me, but the man next to her. He was impossible to miss. Tall, with short dark hair and a confident posture, he was leaning in slightly, as if whispering something in her ear. She laughed, a soft, almost intimate laugh, and for a moment, I thought I might actually lose control. My blood ran cold as I watched them, my heart pounding in my chest. It was him, the man from the letter, the one who had been occupying her thoughts, her time, her heart. Everything I had built with Amelia, everything I had trusted, suddenly felt like it was slipping through my fingers. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just stand there, paralyzed, watching the woman I loved throw everything we had away. But I couldn't bring myself to step forward. It was like an invisible force was holding me back. I didn't want to confront her like this, not in public, not here, not in front of him. But at the same time, I knew that if I walked away, I'd be letting them, get away with it. I took a deep breath and, against every instinct in my body, I walked toward them. As I moved closer, I felt my body tremble with a mixture of anger and fear. I tried to steady myself, but my hands were shaking. The air around me seemed to crackle with tension, as if everyone in the building could feel the storm brewing. Amelia noticed me first. Her face froze. For a split second, she didn't say anything, didn't move. Then, just as quickly, she turned to face me, her eyes widening in shock. "Leo?" Her voice was a whisper, barely audible, but the guilt in her tone was unmistakable. The man next to her, the one who had been laughing with her just seconds ago, looked me up and down, sizing me up. There was a small smirk on his lips, almost as if he was enjoying the whole situation. I could feel my anger rising, my breath coming faster. I wanted to shout, to demand answers, but all that came out was a choked gasp. "What? What is this?" I managed to say, my voice hoarse. I didn't recognize it. It didn't sound like me. It sounded like a man who had been completely blindsided, shattered by the very woman he thought he knew. Amelia took a step toward me, her expression softening, but there was something in her eyes that made my blood run cold. It wasn't fear, as I expected. It wasn't even sorrow. No, it was something else, a strange, unreadable look that made me feel like I was staring at a stranger. "Leo, I didn't want you to find out this way," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you, but I didn't know how." Her words were like a slap to the face. Trying to figure out how to tell me? How could she even say that with a straight face? How could she justify any of this? The man next to her cleared his throat. I turned my gaze toward him, my eyes narrowing. He was standing too close to her, too comfortable, like this was normal, like this was the way it was supposed to be. "Listen, man," he said, his voice smooth but condescending. "I didn't mean to get involved in your business, but it's pretty clear that Amelia and we have a connection." He said it like it was nothing, like what was happening between them wasn't a betrayal, a wrecking ball to my entire life. A wave of rage surged through me. I wanted to lunge at him, to drag him away from her, but I held back. I couldn't let him see me lose control. "Not here. Not now. Leo," Amelia said softly, her voice full of an emotion I couldn't quite place. "Please understand. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could make it work, but I couldn't. It's not you. It's me. It's been happening for months. I've tried to fix it. I've tried to save us, but I couldn't. I don't feel the same anymore." Her words hit me like a wrecking ball. The world around me seemed to blur. I didn't want to hear this. I didn't want to hear her try to explain it away. My chest felt like it was caving in, the air thick and suffocating. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. This woman, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I married, was standing in front of me, confessing to something I could never have imagined. And the worst part? She didn't even seem to be upset. She seemed calm, almost resigned, like she had already made peace with her decision. I turned away, unable to face her. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't process the words she was saying, the reality of the situation. I needed air. I needed to get out of there before I said or did something I would regret. I stormed down the hallway, barely hearing the faint sound of Amelia calling my name behind me. I reached the elevator and punched the button repeatedly, almost willing it to move faster. When the doors finally opened, I stepped inside and pressed the ground floor button with shaking hands. The ride down felt like an eternity. My mind raced with thoughts and emotions I couldn't organize. How had I missed this? How had I not seen what was happening right in front of me? The doors opened, and I stepped out into the lobby, trying to regain my composure. But it wasn't enough. I couldn't control the chaos inside me. The anger, the hurt, the shame, it was all too much. I walked out of the building, into the cold air, and I didn't stop walking until I couldn't remember how long it had been. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that I couldn't stay there. Not in that life. Not with those people who had just torn my world apart. The cold air hit my face as I stepped out of the building, and for a brief moment, it felt like a slap of reality, a reminder that the world outside didn't care about the mess inside me. I was still reeling from what had just happened. The image of Amelia standing next to him, the way she had looked at me with that strange calmness, was burned into my mind. It was like I was in a daze, unable to focus, unable to think clearly. The city around me was a blur, the hustle of the people on the street, the hum of passing cars. All of it felt so distant, like I was watching my life unfold from outside my body. I walked aimlessly for hours, not even sure where I was going. My feet carried me through the streets, past the cafes, the familiar places that once felt comforting, but now seemed suffocating. The cold wasn't helping. It felt like it was cutting through me, but I didn't care. I needed the numbness, needed the distraction from the chaos swirling inside my head. My mind was a war zone, every thought fighting to overpower the other, and all I could do was let it happen. How had it all come to this? I tried to wrap my mind around the idea that Amelia, the woman I married, the woman I trusted with everything, had been hiding this. For months. Was I that blind? Or was I just too stupid to see the signs? I thought back to the little things, the late nights at work, the quiet dinners, the way she had become more distant over time. But it never clicked. I never questioned it. How had I let this go on for so long? I stopped in front of a small park, sitting down on a bench, staring at the empty swings swaying gently in the wind. The silence felt oppressive, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. It was in this moment that I realized I wasn't just angry. I wasn't just hurt. I felt betrayed. But more than that, I felt lost. The life I thought I had was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. I pulled out my phone, not sure what I was even looking for, but then I saw it. A notification from her. It had been sitting there, waiting for me to see it. I had ignored it earlier, but now I couldn't. I tapped the screen, my heart racing as I read the message she had sent. Leo, please let's talk. I'm sorry for everything. I never meant for it to end this way. Can we meet? Please, I need you to understand. I stared at the message, my hands trembling. Was I really going to do this? Was I really going to meet her again? After everything? But I had to know. I needed answers, needed to hear it from her, needed to understand how this could happen. Could she still make me believe that what we had meant something? Or was it all just a lie? I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I stood up and walked away, my phone still clenched tightly in my hand. The world felt unreal, like I was a character in someone else's story. Was this the end? Was this the point where everything fell apart? But even as I walked away, part of me knew I couldn't ignore her forever. I would have to face her. I would have to face him, the man who had taken what was mine. But how? How could I even look at them again without completely losing control? The next day, I found myself standing outside her apartment building. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the entrance, trying to gather the courage to walk inside. I wasn't sure what I was expecting. I wasn't sure if I was ready to confront her, but there I was. And when the door finally opened, I could hear her voice before I saw her. It wasn't loud or frantic, but it was there, soft and full of something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't fear, but it wasn't relief either. Leo, Amelia's voice called out from the hallway. She was standing there in the doorway, looking hesitant, her eyes red as if she had been crying. She was holding herself together, but just barely. Her appearance was a mess, her hair falling out of place, and her makeup smudged as if she had tried to hide the evidence of a breakdown. I didn't speak at first. I couldn't. Instead, I just stood there, watching her, feeling a strange mixture of anger, confusion, and pain. She had been my everything, and now she was a stranger standing in front of me, offering no real explanation. Leo, she whispered again, stepping forward, her hands trembling. Please, we need to talk. I wanted to yell, to scream at her, to demand answers. But instead, I just nodded, the weight of the situation hitting me all at once. I stepped inside, and the door clicked shut behind me with a finality that made my chest tighten. She led me to the living room, but we didn't sit down. We just stood there, facing each other, both unsure of what to say next. Her eyes were full of guilt, but there was something else too, something I couldn't quite read. I felt like I was watching a scene unfold, but I was no longer a part of it. I didn't want you to find out like this, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I never wanted to hurt you, but it's been building up for so long. I didn't know how to fix it. How long? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The question was simple, but the answer felt like it could destroy everything I had left. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Months. Almost a year now, Leo. I tried to keep it under control, but I couldn't. I couldn't keep pretending. My head was spinning. Months? She had been lying to me for months, and I hadn't noticed? I felt a pang of betrayal deep in my chest, like something was slowly dying inside me. She had been with him for months, and yet she was standing here, looking at me like nothing had changed. I took a step back, shaking my head. You were in love with him, weren't you? This whole time. And I was just a distraction? Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded, but her face remained unreadable. I didn't mean to fall for him, Leo. I never planned this. But it happened, and I couldn't turn it off. There was a deafening silence between us. I didn't know what else to say. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't stand in this room, pretending that things could ever go back to the way they were. And just like that, I turned around and walked out of her apartment, leaving behind everything I thought I knew. I don't know what I was expecting when I left Amelia's apartment. Part of me thought I'd feel relieved to finally get the truth, to hear her say it out loud. But what I felt wasn't relief. It wasn't anger, either, not exactly. It was emptiness. A hollow pit, where all the feelings I thought I'd had for her used to be. The woman I thought I knew had been reduced to a stranger, and the life I had built with her was now nothing but shattered fragments I couldn't piece together. I walked for hours, lost in my thoughts, barely aware of the city around me. The streets seemed to stretch on forever, an endless blur of faces and buildings. I didn't care. I didn't want to go home. Didn't want to return to the apartment that still smelled like her, that still had pieces of our life together scattered in every corner. I needed to be somewhere else, anywhere but there. So, without thinking, I found myself at a bar. It wasn't a place I typically went, but I wasn't looking for comfort or company. I was looking for something to drown out the pain. I walked in, the dim lights and the muffled conversations blending together into a distant hum. I took a seat at the bar and ordered a drink, not bothering to say anything more. I didn't need to explain myself to anyone. The bartender gave me a curious look, but said nothing. I took a long sip, the cold liquid burning my throat as it slid down. I needed more of that burn. I needed it to stop the buzzing in my head, the constant replay of Amelia's face as she told me that she didn't love me anymore, as she confessed that everything I thought we had was a lie. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the glass in front of me. My thoughts kept circling back to her, to them, to what she had said about him. Her words still felt like a punch to the gut. She had been with him for months, and I had been too blind to see it. The fact that she could look me in the eye, pretend like everything was fine while she was with him. It was a betrayal on a level I never thought possible. I thought back to all the little moments, all the times I had been the fool. The late nights at work, the secretive behavior, the way she avoided my questions about where she was going or who she was talking to. I had been so focused on my own life, on my own work, that I had missed it. Missed every single sign. And now it was too late. The door to the bar opened, and a gust of cold air swept in. I glanced up, half expecting to see someone I knew, but instead, it was just another couple. The man was talking animatedly, his arm casually draped around the woman's shoulders, laughing as if the world was theirs. They seemed so happy. It made something inside me twist. What did that even feel like anymore? To be genuinely happy with someone? I drained my glass and motioned for another. The bartender was quick to oblige, but he gave me a look this time. One that I didn't quite understand. It was the kind of look someone gives when they know you're not there to have fun, but to forget something. The drink went down quicker this time. The edges of my thoughts started to blur, but not enough to erase the memory of her face when I walked out of her apartment. It was still there, vivid in my mind, like a ghost. And with it came the undeniable truth. She was already gone, and I had nothing left to fight for. By the time I finished my third drink, I was no longer thinking clearly. The alcohol had numbed the sharper edges of the pain, but it had also let my emotions run wild. I stood up, unsteady on my feet, and stumbled toward the door. The night air hit me hard, but I didn't care. I pulled out my phone, the screen glowing faintly in the darkness, and for reasons I still couldn't explain, I opened up Amelia's message again. Leo, please let's talk. I'm sorry for everything. I never meant for it to end this way. Can we meet? Please, I need you to understand. There it was again, the invitation. The plea for understanding. But there was no understanding left to be had. How could I possibly understand? How could I even look at her without seeing the man she had been with? The one who had taken her from me. But despite the anger coursing through me, despite the overwhelming sense of betrayal, a small part of me, the part that was still clinging to the memory of the woman I loved, wanted to go back. I couldn't stop it. I didn't know what I would say to her if I did, but I knew I couldn't just leave it like this. So, without thinking, I texted her back. Where do you want to meet? The reply came almost instantly. My place. Please, Leo. Please just come. We need to talk. My heart sank. Her place. The place where I had once felt safe. The place where we had shared everything. The good, the bad, the plans for the future. Now it was just a room filled with the ghosts of our past. But I couldn't turn back now. I had already made the decision, even if I hated myself for it. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I had to know the truth. I had to hear it from her. I made my way to her apartment, every step feeling heavier than the last. My stomach was in knots, my chest tight with the weight of what was about to unfold. Was this going to be the final confrontation? Would I be able to leave with any semblance of closure, or would I walk away completely shattered? I stood outside her door for what felt like an eternity. My hand hovered over the doorknob, my thoughts a mess of confusion, anger, and fear. And then, I pushed it open. The door creaked open, and I stepped into the familiar space. Everything was just as it had been the last time I was here, except it felt completely different. The warmth of the room, the scent of her perfume, the quiet hum of the city beyond the windows. It all felt like it belonged to someone else. The furniture was arranged the same, the throw blanket on the couch still perfectly draped across the armrest, but it all felt foreign now. Amelia stood near the window, her back to me, looking out at the city lights. She hadn't heard me enter, and for a moment, I stood there in the silence, watching her. Her posture was stiff, almost like she was waiting for something, or maybe for someone. I couldn't tell, but I didn't need to ask. I knew she was waiting for me, just like she had been waiting for the inevitable collapse of everything we had. I took a step forward, my shoes clicking against the hardwood floor, the sound jarring in the stillness. Amelia turned around slowly, her eyes meeting mine, but there was no relief in her gaze, no hope. Just guilt. She looked tired, worn down. I didn't think you'd come, she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. Her eyes were red from crying, her makeup smudged as if she hadn't bothered to clean up after herself. She looked fragile, like the weight of everything was crushing her. I wasn't going to, I admitted, my voice sharp with the rawness of the situation. But I need to hear it from you. I need to know if there's anything left in this, anything real, or if it was all just a lie. She winced, as though my words physically struck her. Leo, please, she started, her voice trembling. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted this to happen. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't know what I was expecting her to say, but it certainly wasn't that. The words caught me off guard, and I was suddenly hit with a mixture of emotions. There was anger, yes, but underneath it, something else, a strange kind of emptiness. I couldn't decide if I felt pity for her or if I was just disgusted by her. Was it worth it? I found myself asking before I could stop myself. The question was out before I could pull it back. Was he worth all of this? All the lies, all the pain? Amelia flinched, her hands clasping together as if she were trying to steady herself. She took a deep breath, and for a moment, I thought she might break down again. I don't know, Leo. I really don't. I never meant for it to get this far. I never thought I'd be here, telling you all of this. It just happened. I never planned it. But when I met him, when I spent time with him, it was like everything changed. He made me feel something that I hadn't felt in years. And I thought, maybe if I could just hold on, things would get better between us. There it was. The truth, raw and painful. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional. And that hurt more than anything else. You've been with him for months, Amelia. Months, I said, my voice shaking now, not with anger but with a deep, aching sorrow. How could you do this to me? How could you live a double life like that? How could you look me in the eye and pretend that everything was fine? I didn't know how to stop it, she said, her voice barely audible. I thought I could fix it. I thought maybe if I just didn't acknowledge it, it would go away. But I couldn't. And then when I realized what was happening, It was too late. I couldn't take it back. I couldn't stop it. Her words echoed in the room, hanging there like a suffocating weight. I could feel my heart breaking all over again as I listened to her try to explain away what she had done, as though it could ever make sense. The betrayal wasn't just in the affair. It was in the secrecy, the lies she told me, the time we spent together while she was building a life with someone else. The room felt smaller now. The walls were closing in on me, and all I could hear was the rushing of blood in my ears. It felt like everything I had known was slipping away, and I had no choice but to watch it happen. "I don't want to lose you, Leo," she said, her voice raw with desperation. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I can't keep pretending either. I don't know if I can fix this. I don't know if I even want to." The words hit me harder than anything else. She didn't want to fix it. She didn't even know if she could. And in that moment, I realized that I had been living in a lie for so long that I didn't even recognize the truth anymore. For a long time, I didn't say anything. I just stood there, watching her, the woman I had loved, now nothing more than a stranger in front of me. I didn't know who she was anymore, and I didn't know who I was, standing there in that moment, hearing all the things I had never wanted to hear. The silence stretched on, suffocating us both, until finally, I spoke. "I think it's over, Amelia," I said quietly, my voice shaking but firm. "I think we're done." Her face crumpled, and for a brief moment, I saw the woman I had married. But it was fleeting. The woman I had once known was gone. All that was left was this broken version of her. "Please, Leo," she begged, taking a step toward me, reaching out like she could somehow pull me back, like she could make me feel what I had once felt for her. But it was too late. The damage had been done, and there was no going back. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice breaking as I turned away from her. My legs felt heavy, my body drained, but I knew what I had to do. I had to leave. I walked toward the door, and with one last look back, I saw her standing there, tears running down her face, but I didn't feel the need to comfort her. There was nothing left to say. There was nothing left to fix. I closed the door behind me, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally free. The door clicked shut behind me with a finality that echoed through my bones. The moment it closed, a strange kind of numbness settled over me, as if the entire world had shifted, leaving me standing on the edge of a precipice. I stood there in the hallway for a long moment, my hand still resting on the doorknob, the weight of what I had just done sinking in. It wasn't just the words I had spoken or the actions I had taken. It was the quiet realization that the person I thought I knew, the woman I had spent years building a life with, was gone, and there was no way to bring her back. I didn't want to leave. A part of me wanted to rush back into her arms, to take it all back, to fix it somehow. But I knew that wasn't possible. The cracks had been there for so long, and no amount of patching them up would ever make it whole again. I wasn't the same person who had walked through that door just an hour ago, and neither was she. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the silence pressing in around me. I had to get out of there. Away from her, away from this life that no longer made sense. My apartment felt too close, too familiar. Everything there reminded me of her. The pictures on the walls, the half-empty coffee mugs on the counter, the scent of her perfume still lingering in the air. I couldn't go back to that. Not yet. I didn't know where I was going, but I started walking. The streets were quiet for the most part, the city dim and still under the weight of the night. I passed familiar places, bars, coffee shops, the old bookstore where we had spent countless weekends together. But none of it felt real anymore. It all felt like a story I was no longer a part of, like I had stepped out of my own life and was watching it play out from the outside. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and for a moment, I thought it might be her, Amelia, apologizing again, begging me to come back, to understand. I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. But I pulled it out anyway, my fingers trembling as I unlocked the screen. It wasn't her. It was a text from my best friend, Tom. He had always been there for me, even when I didn't deserve it. The message was simple. "Are you okay? I'm here if you need to talk." I stared at the words for a long time. Tom had been one of the few constants in my life. He'd been there when I met Amelia, when we got married, and through all the ups and downs of our relationship. He had seen it all, the good and the bad. But I hadn't told him about what was going on with Amelia. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't even fully admitted it to myself until now. I didn't know how to respond. What could I say? How could I explain everything that had just happened everything I had just discovered, in a text. How could I put into words the whirlwind of emotions that had been tearing me apart since the moment I found out about her betrayal? I didn't answer. Instead, I slipped my phone back into my pocket and kept walking. The streets were becoming emptier, the sounds of the city slowly fading into the distance. I didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't want to talk. I just needed space to think, to breathe, to process all of this. Eventually, I found myself at the edge of the park, the same park where I had sat for hours a few days ago, staring at the empty swings. But this time, I didn't feel the numbness. I felt something deeper, something colder. I sat on a bench, staring out into the dark, the city lights flickering in the distance, and I let the tears come. They were the kind of tears that felt like they had been waiting to break free for so long, but I hadn't allowed myself to cry. Not for her, not for anything. But now, everything came rushing to the surface, the hurt, the anger, the confusion. I didn't even try to stop it. As I sat there, alone in the dark, I realized something. It wasn't just Amelia I was mourning. It was the life I thought I had, the future I had planned for us, the vacations, the house, the family. All of it had been a lie. And now it was gone. All of it. The pieces were scattered, and there was no way to put them back together. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe it was minutes, maybe hours. Time seemed irrelevant now. My mind was numb, my body exhausted, and I didn't know what the next step was. Should I go back? Should I confront her again? Should I beg her to explain herself, to give me some kind of closure? But I knew deep down that there would never be any closure. Not with her. Not with him. There was no going back to the way things were. I stood up, feeling the cold wind bite against my skin. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay in this park, stuck in my thoughts, trapped in the same memories. I needed to get out of here, away from everything that reminded me of her, of us. The world around me felt unfamiliar, like I was walking through a dream. The city was still, and I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. For the first time in a long time, I didn't know what was next. I didn't know who I was anymore, or what I was supposed to do. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living in the shadow of the life I thought I had. It was time to let go. But letting go, that was the hardest part. I walked aimlessly for what felt like hours, but I had no clear destination. My feet were moving, but my mind was a million miles away. The weight of everything I had just learned felt like an anchor pulling me deeper into a place I didn't recognize. My life, my future, had just crumbled in front of me, and now I was walking through this unfamiliar world with nothing but the memory of her face and the ghost of the love we once shared. The city was quiet at this hour, but the darkness felt suffocating. I kept replaying the conversation I had with Amelia in my head. The words, her voice, her confession. She had admitted to it. She had said it out loud, and somehow, hearing her say it made it worse. It wasn't just an affair. It was the fact that she had been living two lives. She had been so convincing, so perfect in front of me, and yet she had been planning her escape from me for months. How could I not have seen it? How could I not have noticed the signs? The late nights, the distance between us, the way she stopped caring about the little things that once mattered. How had I been so blind? I stumbled into a small park, the only sound the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. I sat down on one of the benches, feeling the cold seep into my bones. The weight of the night, the heaviness in my chest, was overwhelming. My heart felt like it was being crushed under the weight of everything. The betrayal, the anger, the heartbreak. I didn't know how to feel anymore. There were too many emotions swirling inside of me, and none of them felt like they belonged together. I pulled out my phone again, not sure what I was looking for. Maybe I hoped for some kind of sign, a message from someone who could tell me what to do, how to make sense of this mess. But the only thing that greeted me was the same message from Tom, asking if I was okay. I hadn't responded to him yet, but I couldn't bring myself to reach out to anyone. Not yet. I opened the message anyway, my fingers trembling as I typed out a response. I don't know if I'm okay. Everything's falling apart. I'm not sure how to fix it. I hit send, and for a long moment, nothing happened. My screen remained blank, the little 3 dots at the bottom of the screen blinking as if Tom was trying to find the right words to say. I didn't want him to say anything. I didn't want anyone to offer me sympathy or advice. I didn't want to hear the words that would make everything feel like it could be repaired, because I knew it couldn't. I turned off my phone and shoved it back into my pocket, standing up from the bench. I had no idea where I was going. All I knew was that I couldn't keep sitting there, lost in my thoughts. I needed to move. I needed to do something that would distract me from the pit in my stomach, from the pain that was threatening to overwhelm me. I walked through the quiet streets, my mind racing with thoughts of Amelia. I couldn't escape her, couldn't escape what she had done, what we had lost. The more I thought about it, the more the anger started to surface. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was everything. The lies, the manipulation, the fact that she had made a choice to be with someone else, to let go of everything we had. And what about me? What was I supposed to do now? What was I supposed to feel? I had no answers. I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. Did I want to confront her again? Did I want to scream at her for the betrayal, for the years I had wasted loving someone who was capable of lying to my face? Or did I just want to forget her altogether, to erase her from my life and pretend like it never happened? I knew I couldn't just walk away from everything. I couldn't pretend like none of this mattered, like I hadn't been gutted by her betrayal. But I couldn't keep living in this endless cycle of hurt either. I had to make a decision, but what decision could I possibly make? The city lights flickered around me as I kept walking, lost in my thoughts. I didn't even know how I had gotten so far from where I started. I was standing on a street corner when I saw it, an old bar, tucked away on a side street. I didn't know why I was drawn to it, but something about it felt right. Maybe it was the anonymity of the place, the fact that I could lose myself in the crowd for a while. Maybe it was the chance to drown my thoughts in something stronger than the chaos inside my head. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, the warmth of the bar hitting me immediately. The dim lighting, the low murmur of conversation, the clink of glasses. It felt like a refuge from everything outside. I found an empty stool at the bar and sat down, the bartender looking up at me with a quick nod. I ordered a drink, not bothering to think about it, just wanting the burn of alcohol to quiet the storm inside me. As the drink was placed in front of me, I took a long sip, feeling the sharp sting of it slide down my throat. The warmth spread through me, and for a moment, I almost forgot. Almost. I kept drinking, and with each sip, the noise in my head started to quiet. I didn't feel better, but I didn't feel anything at all. The numbness I had been searching for had finally come, and for now, that was enough. I was so lost in my own thoughts that I didn't notice the man sitting next to me until he spoke. "You look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, my friend." I turned to look at him, surprised by his sudden presence. He was older than me, maybe in his 40s, with a weathered face and tired eyes. There was a kind of understanding in his gaze, the kind that only comes from living through something rough. He wasn't asking for my life story, but something in the way he looked at me made it clear he knew what it felt like to lose everything. Something like that. I replied, my voice quieter than I expected. He didn't say anything at first, just took a sip of his own drink, nodding as if he understood. "You're not the first one to go through it," he said finally, his voice low but firm. "And you won't be the last." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I looked at him, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I actually saw someone else. Someone who had been where I was, who had felt the same pain. He wasn't offering me advice, wasn't telling me what to do. He was just letting me know that I wasn't alone. That maybe, just maybe, I could make it through this. The man at the bar didn't say much more after that. He didn't need to. His words had struck a chord deep within me. It wasn't about fixing the unfixable. It wasn't about making everything right again. It was about realizing that I didn't have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders alone. And that was the first step towards something new. I stayed at the bar for a while longer, talking to the man here and there, but mostly just sitting in silence. The more I sat there, the more the reality of my situation began to sink in, not in a painful way, but in a way that made me feel okay. Like, maybe this wasn't the end of everything, but the end of something that wasn't meant to last. I wasn't tied to a past that was broken. I was free to create a future, even if I didn't know what it looked like yet. By the time I left the bar, the night was waning, and the first hints of dawn were breaking over the horizon. The city seemed different now, brighter somehow. The world didn't seem so heavy anymore. As I walked down the street, the weight I'd been carrying for so long was finally lifting, little by little. I wasn't sure what the future would hold, but I knew I was going to be okay. When I got back to my apartment, I didn't go inside right away. Instead, I stood outside for a moment, looking up at the sky. It was early, the streets still quiet, and the city felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something new to begin. I realized that the hardest part wasn't the heartbreak or the betrayal. The hardest part was letting go. Letting go of someone who had once been everything to me, but who wasn't anymore. I took a deep breath and walked into my apartment. It felt different now. Not empty, but open, like there was room for something new to take root. The walls that had once felt suffocating now seemed like a blank canvas, ready for me to paint my own future. I didn't know exactly what that future would look like, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. I didn't need to have it all figured out right away. The important thing was that I had started moving forward. I had taken the first step toward healing, and that was enough. The phone buzzed in my pocket again, and this time, it was Tom. I had ignored his messages earlier, but now I didn't hesitate. I pulled out my phone, typed out a quick response. I'm okay. I'm not where I thought I'd be, but I'm getting there. A few seconds later, his reply came through. I'm proud of you, man. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here. I smiled at the message, feeling a warmth spread through me. Tom had always been there for me, and I knew I could count on him. But the truth was, I was starting to realize that I didn't need to lean on anyone to fix me. I wasn't broken. I was just in the middle of a difficult chapter, and there was so much more left to write. I took a shower, cleaned up, and then sat down at my desk, staring at the blank screen of my computer. There was work to be done, things I had put off for too long. But there was also life to be lived, experiences to be had. I wasn't going to let this betrayal define me. I wasn't going to let it be the end of my story. The sun had risen now, and the light filtering through the windows felt like a new beginning. I didn't know what the next chapter would look like, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to find out. I was stronger than I had realized. And maybe, just maybe, this was the moment I had been waiting for all along. My chance to rebuild, to rediscover who I was, and to start living for myself. I didn't need to hold on to the past anymore. I was free to move forward. And with that thought, I started typing.